Reiju mirrors, aren't they fun? This is the finals here of my locals, Saturday morning locals escapade here against probably one of the better Reiju players in my community, and probably one of the only Reiju players during the drought of Reiju here when Red Purple Law was kind of running nuts the last two metas. This specific opponent stayed strong, kept playing Reiju, and it's honestly one of the best Reijus I've played against here locally, and I'm trying to fit in here. This is my first time playing Reiju at this event, and I'm 3-0 right now, and I'm having a blast. Reiju's pretty fun. I ended up keeping a hand that was okay. I ended up finding the Porsche. I've got two searchers here to potentially find what I need. Going first, going against the opponent who's going second here. The goal of this specific mirror match is the game of who can have less Dawn than the other player, right? Who can take the other player off of their on-play abilities, and that's kind of the goal here as we go through this game. Porsche is going to be one of the best potential plays here, as it's going to allow us to minus ourselves of enough Dawn to where we won't be able to, we'll be able to stifle our opponent's abilities here. And so, unfortunately, I don't have the setup I need to make Porsche good. But I end up finding the Niji. We did have the stage on 1, which is pretty great here, but I think we're going to pull out the Niji, as I do have the baby version in hand here, or we could honestly just grab the Reiju here. Yeah, we're just going to grab the Reiju. I do need to be able to have draw power in this game, because ultimately the opponent's going to be drawing a bunch of cards with Reiju, so I need to make sure that I'm also keeping up and drawing a bunch of cards. We're going to go ahead and look at the top 3 off the stage rip. We're going to find a 4-drop EGG. Okay, we're building the puzzle here. We're going to use one more Dawn to use the searcher here to look at the top 5 and try to find what we can here. We ended up finding the rest of the puzzle here, but we have a decision. We could either grab the baby Reiju or the 7-drop EGG, and I think right now we decided that card advantage is way more important in this specific matchup. So we're going to go ahead and swing 6k lead. Opponent's just going to snap take that here, and likely I'm going to do the same on the backswing here. Really kind of hoping that my opponent doesn't see a Porsche here, as if they Porsche, they're going to make it a lot harder for me to be able to play out my on-play effects, as they're going to be at 2 Dawn ending their turn, and I'm going to start my turn with 5 Dawn, which means I'm going to be struggling. We're going to go ahead and 2k out of that, try to keep up the advantage here on the life. Opponent's going to go ahead and play their Porsche out, and going to look at the top 5 cards, try to find something cool. Opponent ends up not finding any Foxy Pirates. Going to go and throw them at bottom and play out a Reiju here. Opponent's also in the same game plan of potentially playing out the Reiju. I think opponent maybe hit a Reiju off the top draw from the Reiju leader effect, going to play the Reiju out and draw some cards. That's potentially what we're going to do early game to try to fill up our hands and make sure that we have the resources we need to combo off here. I do have the Porsche, but my opponent is at 2 Dawn, so I need to be able to minus myself a bunch of Dawn here to be able to effectively have the play here. And this is incredibly unfortunate. I think I do manage to take myself down far enough. I do have a play here. I can search here, keeping the Porsche in hand. We do end up finding another big Reiju. We do likely we're going to take that one, but we could also just take the stage. The stage is going to allow us to play another stage, or potentially use to throw it away. Honestly, could grab the Reiju there as well. That Niji is probably the least important card that I could grab out of those 3, but I think I'm thinking here, what's worth it to me? Do I need to back up a Reiju in case my opponent takes the first one? We're going to go ahead and just say no. We're going to go ahead and grab a stage here. And we could potentially play this out here to be able to do, so I could minus myself 3 Dawn here if I really wanted to by playing out specific decks, and I think that's what I'm deciding to do. So I'm going to go ahead and minus 3, or tap 3. We're going to play Porsche. Porsche's going to look the top 5, see if we get lucky. We end up finding a second Porsche as well as a Chopper here, and that Chopper is pretty useless in this specific matchup. It's useless in the fact that we won't be able to pop off on its ability, so you can choose to not ramp off a Chopper's ability, because you want to stay the lowest amount of Dawn. But Porsche is pretty great here, as Porsche is going to continue to allow myself to go pretty low. I don't really have any targets in my yard, and so I think what we're going to do here is grab a Niji. And the whole reason I'm doing this is so I can minus myself up enough Dawn to be able to play out the Reiju and get the Reiju effect. So I need to minus myself 2 additional Dawn here. We're going to go ahead and... So I think I missed a draw, and I think it was too late. I think I realized at the end of my turn. This is the time when it mattered most. I missed a draw on the Reiju here. We're gonna go ahead and we activate the Niji, no effect. You can still minus 1 Dawn and then choose not to choose a target, and then we're gonna play out the Reiju, minus Reiju, get myself down to 2 Dawn to be able to match my opponent here, so that way I can draw 2 cards here. And now we're cooking with gas. We end up finding the Ichiji here. to potentially play next turn. But yeah, 5k swing at lead, likely going to get a counter out of my opponent's hand. But now we're kind of at this clock again where my opponent's going to go up to 4, and my opponent has to have a Porsche. If my opponent doesn't have a Porsche, I'm going to be able to take them off of this curve for the rest of the game. This is my opponent. Like, last turn was my turn to make sure that I could get back to where I needed to be. And now this is my opponent's turn to see if they still have a Porsche here. My opponent's going to start with the Searcher event here. Looking at the top 5, going to grab a Germa 66 type card. Going to grab the Reiju, baby Reiju, and then gonna go likely with a 3-Don up. He's potentially threatening a Porsche. If my opponent sees a Porsche here, we still have a game, as we're gonna just continue to pass back and forth to each other to try to see who has the least amount of Don here. My opponent's gonna tap 3, play out a Porsche. Porsche's gonna -1 Don, allow him to look at the top 5, see what he can find. Whiff, please, is what I'm thinking in the back of my head. Opponent is shuffling it around like he's gonna whiff, and he did unfortunately whiff. Opponent is going to play out the baby Reiju, and he does have potentially, he'll have the Don in play to be able to get the Reiju off again if he does have another one in hand. If not, it is a potential play for next turn to minus himself back down. But we're trying out here. We're trying, doing work for sure. This is such a weird matchup, just like trying to control and ensure that you end the turn with less than or equal Don to your opponent, so where your opponent then has to kind of jump some hoops to do it as well. And I did think, I thought the previous turn was a little bit of a clever play with the resources that I had at the time to ensure that I could still pop off and ensure that I get Reiju triggers here. But opponent is going to go ahead and swing 5 with the other Reiju. I'm going to go ahead and just take that, as I don't really have anything in my hand to give up, as I only have 2 counters, and I kind of want to keep those. But I think we're going to allow this Reiju to go out of hand here, as it's not a really big deal if it's in my yard. Opponent's going to swing again, another 5, and I see another Ichiji here. I'm already down to 2 to my opponent's 3. I am very sad at this point. Does my opponent have another Reiju in yard? I don't remember. Let's see here. And my opponent just passes, so my opponent took themselves down to 3. That means I don't need a Porsche this turn to be able to get my effects, which is pretty nice. But I do have the Porsche, so I'm likely just going to do that again to take myself back down to 2, which means my opponent has to -3 Don to be able to catch back up here. We're going to start with activating stage. I think stage is going to could grab the baby Ichiji, because I've seen 2 big Ichijis, but we're going to grab just another Reiju here, as that is just a 1k counter in hand potentially. As my opponent and I are going to be so Don starved that we're likely just going to be swinging with base attack on our characters. So 5ks is just good enough. We're going to pitch the Ichiji, grab a 2k. And then likely here, just going to play out the Porsche into Ichiji. Let's see if we can remember to draw off a Porsche here. We're going to play Porsche out. We're going to -1 Don. We're going to look at the top 5. Find something nice. That's a chopper. That's something. Ultimately, it's a 1k or a blocker later. We'll go ahead and take that. And then we're going to drop that Ichiji into play here. And then we're going to remember to draw off lead. Yes, we remembered this time. Good guy. Good guy. And yeah, that judge in hand. Yeah, I'm not going to see that judge. I'm never going to have enough time to play that judge. We're going to -1. We're going to go ahead and play out the Ichiji. One of the 2 Ichijis that I've thrown in the yard. Ichiji's going to come in, and this is where we try to control the board to a degree. We're going to go ahead and set the Porsche down to 3k, and I think we're just going to leader swing into the Porsche here, and then maybe send a few additional face. We're going to send 7k into the Reiju here. I think we're just going to try to clear the board that we see, because we are in kind of a tough spot right now. Our hand does have has a lot more counter than it did last turn, but still not feeling very good. We're going to send 5k at lead. Go send another 5k at lead here. Likely going to get counter on my opponent's hand. Opponent's going to show me a 2k, and we're going to pass back to my opponent. I am at 2 Don. My opponent's up to 5 Don. My opponent does have to -3 Don this turn to ensure that their characters are not vanillas. And man, this is the game. This is the life. This is what Reiju mirrors are like. At least in my opinion, is just trying to keep each other off, trying to keep yourself low enough to try to catch your opponent. And if my opponent doesn't have a Porsche here, my opponent is going to be in a really bad spot. But my opponent just immediately taps 3, plays down a Porsche. That Porsche does ensure that my opponent is likely going to be able to resolve some effects here. Opponent's this time not whiffing on the Porsche. Porsche's going to grab a chopper to hand, and then we're going to play out an Ichiji, draws off of that, and then now my opponent's going to be able to. One of his effects is not going to happen, so he's going to play out the Reiju. It's not going to allow him to draw any cards because he doesn't have less or equal Don to me, but he is going to be able to activate Ichiji's ability to get a rusher here. Potentially what he could do is swing into my Ichiji with his Ichiji, setting my thing down, but I think he said he's just going to go for board control here. Likely going to send 5k into my Porsche and then a 7k into my Reiju. Look familiar? That's exactly what I did last turn. This is what this game is, this potential match is about, is controlling the opponent's board and then also getting your swings in while you can. So likely what's going to happen here is that Ichiji's either going to go life or it's going to go or into my Reiju character here. My opponent can also just keep throwing 5ks into my Reiju character to trying to like bait me to get counter out of hand. But I will not. I likely won't be as baited here. Opponent's going to go ahead and just swing 5k. At least turn it as I was thinking about it here. Instead, he's going to go 5k. I think that 5k is going at lead here. We're going to go and give him a 1k. And then a 7k. 7k is going... Didn't look like a declaration to my Reiju, but I think that's going somewhere. It's going to lead here. I'm going to go ahead and take that. I definitely could have countered it out of it, but I do kind of wanted to keep my board going. I think he could have sent it at my character and then I would have just countered out of it. But here, now we're at this situation where I need a Porsche again. And I don't have a Porsche right now. So I'm like in this really awkward situation where my opponent has Porsche 3 times in a row to keep up with my Dawn. And now I need to do the same, but I can't. So we're going to go ahead and just activate. We're going to get that Judge out of hand. Judge is not useful at this point. I have a few plays, likely going to grab the 2k at this point because preserving life totals is pretty important here. And we could just play the Ichiji out and get like a no effect, just a vanilla 7k, which is pretty unfortunate, but we might have to do that as we don't really have any other way to minus Dawn here. Can't do anything, any trickery here, but I think maybe we could set up for some kind of play with having just multiple Ichijis out. Right, if I swing with an Ichiji, I could clear something off the board, but my opponent doesn't have a lot for me to clear right now. So, and I think, is that a chopper? I can't tell what that is. That might actually be another, maybe a Porsche. I can't tell. It's like in a really awkward spot on the glare. But yeah, we're in a. It might be chopper. So my opponent has a chopper blocker now. So that's pretty unfortunate. So this is a tough spot, right? So I'm against the wall right now, and I'm gonna go ahead and use, likely just gonna tap out for the Ichiji, which feels so bad, right? And when you don't have less on your opponent, it's just a vanilla, and that is a chopper blocker in the glare there. We're gonna go send 5k. Where's the 5k going here? I think we're just gonna go 5k lead. I think we're just gonna start pressuring face because we do need to ultimately end the game. Because we're kind of losing the Dawn, the resource war right now. We're going to go ahead and send 5k into the Porsche. And then we've got another 7k attack here. We're going to go ahead and send 5k. I'm potentially trying to bait cards out of my opponent's hand at this point. We're going to send another 5k in the Porsche. Opponent's just going to let it happen. And then we're going to go 7k, I think, into the Porsche. And then my opponent is definitely going to let it die. Could potentially block. My opponent just decides to block, trying to potentially go for lethal this next turn. I currently have 3 2ks in hand. I potentially see the writing on the wall here, but I'm just gonna play out my Ichiji. We're gonna draw a card off Ichiji. We're gonna put a 7-drop Ichiji into play. It is not a haster again. Very sad vanilla card. And we'll draw off leader ability. As long as I remember, we'll draw off leader ability. Ended up picking up a stage. Pretty unfortunate. But we've got 3 2Ks, 3 1Ks. It's a solid 9k in hand. We could potentially survive with 1 life, but this is gonna be tough. If my opponent sees another Ichiji, I'm likely dead here. Opponent's going to go ahead and discard a Niji. You can look at the top 3. And my opponent is at 4 Dawn, right? So, we have stifled each other, right? This Dawn battle, resource battle, does not allow us to kind of stack ourselves too high to get basic swings in. Opponent's just going to grab a 2k Sanji. And then we'll see what my opponent decides to do. Likely he's just going to go for face here. He could try to clean up board a little bit on the way there. I basically see any attack into board as a bait, right? Baiting me into potentially taking hits. He's going to go lead. He's going to go lead again. This is another swing at lead here. I'm going to give him my 1k chopper. I'm going to try to give him my 1ks when I can. I do want to keep that Ichiji in hand and potentially play out a 30 Ichiji. That would be pretty cool to try to finish game here. Opponent is looking at some Dawn here. Going to go ahead and swing 7k. Into 7k to lead. All right. Or no, 7k into Porsche. So my opponent's going to start dealing with my board now, as I have a little bit of a reluctance to protect my board at this point. So So likely this is going to be 7k, 7k into Reiju, as my opponent's going to decide not to go for lethal at this specific point. Opponent is going to look through the yard to see what I'm working with here. I do have a lot of nonsense in there, but maybe not the nonsense that my opponent's looking for, as I think I'm still missing another Ichiji. Opponent's going to go ahead and send 7. I think that 7's going at lead here. We're going to take it, and then we do have enough to counter out of another 7k attack at lead if my opponent decides to do so. He's going to go 7k into Reiju, and we're going to snap counter out of that because we need that Reiju for this next turn to try to go for lethal. My opponent only has 2 cards in hand. I'm going to go up to 5 Dawn. My opponent's at 4 Dawn, so I am going to be able to pull off any abilities for my characters. Here, I think we're just going to go and activate stage. We're going to look at the top 5. We're going to find the 7-drop Ichiji, and this is the play, right? So I think we just have to go for a game here. I think we have to go 7k Ichiji, 7k Ichiji, 6k, 5k Ichiji, 7k. And try to end game here, because I don't think there's any other way we can potentially get out of this. So just kind of think of the right way to do this. I might save the Ichijis for last. We're going to go and go 5k lead. We know my opponent has a 2k in hand. We get the 2k out of hand here. And then I think we're going to go 6k, 6k. And my opponent has a second 2k. Oh my gosh. All right. This is getting a little dicey here. We're going 7k. We're going to go 7k again, and man, we have to pray at this point, right? Because, yeah, we can go, we're going to try to just go for lethal here. Very unfortunate that my opponent had 2ks. Ultimately, I could have just swung 5k, 5k, and 8k, which is another play based on what my opponent had. And my opponent shows me a 2k and a stage off life. My opponent, I scraped by. Just such an intense, such a close game. I scraped by so easily, so barely, right into that 2k and 1k. No 1k off life, just a 2k. All he needed was a 2k 1k in the game, and that concludes it. I ended up taking first here at the locals, going 4-0 with Reiju. Yeah, this was a crazy last game. Definitely didn't think I'd see Reiju in the final, a double Reiju mirror in the finals. But if you enjoy this type of gameplay, definitely subscribe and leave a like on the video to show me that you want to see more of it. With that in mind, thanks for watching, everybody.